man. They were the only ones who would associate with a man like that. Boy, when I became a Christian, I didn't know any real nice people. I mean, that's just the reality. They were not so nice people. He didn't know any of the social elite well enough to invite them to his house. But it's interesting that the Pharisees and scribes came. Why did they go? Because Jesus was there. They seen that, well, can you imagine they see Matthew walk away from this tax table? That had to really shock them. And then he invites all these people to his house, another shock. And maybe he didn't invite them, I don't know. But maybe just sent out the word, hey, Matthew, the ex-tax collector, is going to have a party at his house, and everybody's welcome that wants to come. Free food, free drinks, you name it, come on down. I don't know how he did it. Don't know if he took out, a bulletin board, a big billboard out on the road, or if he had people their signs, like at the airport, looking to pick you up. Or was it just word of mouth? I would assume it was word of mouth that a big thing had happened in this guy's life, and that's why people came. He was a tax collector, and tax collectors were at his level. That's what we find in Matthew 21. For a Jewish man like Matthew, the worst thing of worst was to be a collector of taxes, a publican. His occupation made him a traitor to the nation. And you have to remember that. He's a traitor to the nation. He is helping out Rome. And, because of his position, more than likely is making a little bit extra. So he would have been an outcast, forbidden from the temple. He might have been able to go to the court of the Gentiles, but he would be unable to go any closer because he was always in a position of being an unclean man. And to them, Matthew, as all publicans, were the scum of the earth. Therefore, his friends were the riffraff of the society, and that's who he invites to his house. And Jesus and his apostles, they stay. They don't run away. And I think that's a lesson for us. Man, when, riffraff come around, we don't have to run away. We can take a stand. We can care for people as they are. How could you invite, or who could you invite to come to hear about Jesus? That's the question. Who could you invite? If you were to have a banquet, who would you invite? I'm going to do a barbecue. I just want to invite people. Boy, think about it. There's more things that we can do. You can do a barbecue at home and invite your neighbors. A few years ago, Gloria did a Christmas cookie exchange for our neighbors. And they came. They didn't know us. Man, most people anymore don't know but one or two neighbors. The rest of the people hide out, it seems. People don't come out of their houses like they used to. I was a kid, everybody sat outside and talked, and you knew everybody in the next couple of blocks. Today, if you know the person next door or across the street, you're doing pretty well. B on your outline. Of course, the people of the religious establishment, they're outraged. They're scandalized. But that's what we find in verses 30 through 33. Boy, they're grumbling, they're complaining. Verse 33, and he said to him, the disciples of John often fast and offer prayers. The disciples of the Pharisees also do the same. But yours eat and drink. What's with all this? And you're supposed to be a holy man. And your disciples, look at how they're living their lives. They wasted no time voicing their criticism of his disciples, or to the disciples about Jesus. And it's interesting, Jesus doesn't overlook it. He doesn't pay it a no, never you mind. He addresses it. Oftentimes we won't address it. We just kind of, I ain't going there, because then they're going to get on my case. But he takes that stand. And he says to them, hey, it's sick people that need a physician. Boy, it's people that are having a struggle with hope. It's people that have major health issues that don't know what to do. It's people that have too much month at the end of the money that don't know what to do. Those are the people that know Jesus, need to know Jesus. It's the people that realize that life isn't working to the best that it can. And we have something to offer them. Except don't tell them come and die that they might truly live. And then they're liable to freak out on you. Hit you upside the ears. But that's the growth process when they understand that what does that mean to truly live? Because I didn't have a concept of that. Did anybody know what it meant that you would truly live? Maybe you're not living right now. Maybe that's a problem. Maybe you're struggling. He's got a lot to offer us if we'll open up our eyes and see. He had not come to call the self-righteous, but sinners to repentance. In other words, there was nothing, think about this in your own life, there was nothing Jesus could offer the religious elite. What could he offer them? If you think you have everything, if you think you don't have a need, what can you offer? You see, if I become so self-made, if I don't trust in God, and sometimes I think he lets us get to the end of the month with not enough money. I think he allows that to happen so that we will trust him, so that we can see that he provides. You know, this elevator thing has drove me crazy. I mean, and the budget committee don't like it either because, you know, $1,000 bill and it still wasn't fixed, and I don't know, whatever that lock wound up costing us, $300 or $400, and still isn't working. The guy come out, works on it again, and then he tells what bearings are shot, and he says, oh, it's probably going to be about another $2,000, and I'm thinking, oh man, I mean, budget committee, only Vicki heard this earlier today. Rick hadn't heard this yet, and it's like, well, God, what are you doing? We have reserves. We're trying to get things fixed up, and we're doing that. And boy, Lord, you know, we keep asking for more, and where are we going to get it from? We're at the end of our rope, God. We kind of don't have much more. So what did God do last week? Sent a check. Who from? This blow your mind. From Rachel. You go think about that. Is this God incredible or not? We didn't know that there was anything left because, you know, Scott took care of everything. It's, what, 3 years? Almost 3 years? And he finally paid everything off, and there was money left, and they divided it up the way Rachel wanted to divide it. And you know how much God gave us? $2,000-something. Did God know the elevator had a problem? We knew it had a problem. we didn't know how bad of a problem it was. God knew the elevator had a problem. He knew how bad the problem was. And he's, you know what? If we will learn to trust him, if we will learn to get to the right altar, get to the altar of God and not keep trying to do it our way. Matthew, folks, learned it right off the bat. He learned an incredible trust. Follow me. That was the only thing. That was all Jesus said. Was follow me. And he left what he had. And he put his trust in him because he knew he had a need. The religious elite didn't get the blessing because they wouldn't admit they had the need. They kept trying to work it out themselves. So I think I could end the message right here, the lesson for us. Do you recognize your need? And will you go to him with your need? And what if he doesn't fulfill it today? What if he makes me wait a month, 2 months, or what if you got to have another surgery and you're surgeryed out? You know what? It's his. And he says he loves me more than anybody could ever imagine or love me. He says he will provide in ways that I'll not understand. And maybe it doesn't always mean financially. Maybe he's going to do something else. But do you trust him enough to allow him to do something else? Or are you a Pharisee? A scribe, a hypocrite? And you say, well, yeah, I'm a religious person, but I don't trust him. But I can't walk with him. Because, I mean, I got to be able to do it. And, he says, put your feet to prayer, so I got to be doing something. Well, I think put your feet to prayer is just pray all the time. Pray continually. Yes, look for those places he's working. Yes, join him. But folks, if we don't trust him, we become like them. And he said he couldn't touch them. He couldn't help them until they came to the end of their rope and seen that their need was Jesus. But people like Matthew, who were prepared to confess their sins, who were prepared to lean on Jesus, to admit that they were a cripple, and Jesus said that in the Sermon on the Mount, you got to come to that point of recognizing your spiritual poverty. And if you don't come to that point, well, Pastor, it's not my spiritual poverty that matters, it's my financial poverty. And I'm trying to tell you, it's all connected. Every bit of it's connected. It's a faith walk. Well, see, the gospel and tax collectors. Some interesting things that you as you look at this stuff, at the word that come out to me. It's interesting to note that 3 other tax collectors are specific. There's only 2 that are mentioned in a positive light of the Pharisaical group, Herodians, Sadducees, Pharisees, and that's Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus that are mentioned otherwise. But here it mentions 3 tax collectors that each of them found forgiveness. Each of them found new life. Think about it. Zacchaeus was a wee little man was he. He climbed up in sycamore tree because Jesus, he wanted to see. Who do you want to see? Who do you want to see at the end of your day? Man, if John was here, I'd ask him to come up and give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. That's what I want to see at the end of my day. Give me Jesus. And give me more of Jesus. That's Zacchaeus' life. What is yours? And then there's the publican mentioned in Luke 18. There's the tax collector and the Pharisee that he mentions there. We'll look at that in a moment. And then there's Matthew. 3 tax collectors, 3 publicans that were mentioned, and God does this incredible thing. I was going to ask you, John, you heard that. That's good. Luke 15, verse 1 says, and it'd be up on the wall, all the tax collectors and sinners drew near to him to hear him. You see, they were attracted because they knew what they were. Do you know what you are? What finally attracted me to Jesus was when I realized what I was. Scoundrel, unprincipled, scumbag of the world. Luke 7:29 says, Jesus commended John the Baptist's ministry. When all the people heard him, even the tax collectors justified God, having been baptized with the baptism of John. You see, folks, it's pointing out that they were available to hear. They recognized they had a great need in their life. And then Jesus admonished the religious leaders in Matthew 21, the second part of verse 31 and 32. Truly I say to you that the tax collectors and prostitutes will get into the kingdom of God before you. Man, that is an indictment of religious people, of people that think, I can do it all on my own. Not just religious, but those that don't think they need God in their life. It's an indictment to them. For John came to you in the way of righteousness, and you did not believe him, but the tax collectors and prostitutes did believe him, and you, seeing this, did not even feel remorse afterwards so as to believe in him. How many times have you heard the gospel, and you're still lacking faith and trust? That's the point that's being made. How many times, Chris, do you hear the good news, and you still wander out in the wilderness? Are you tired of the wilderness? I am sick and tired of the wilderness. And men, it's time that we continue wholeheartedly turning ourselves unto the Lord. The parable now of the publican and the sinner out of Luke 18. I think it might have well been based on this incident. And it would be up on the wall here. 2 men went up to the temple to pray. One a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. It's Luke chapter 18, verses 10 through 14. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank you that I'm not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this tax collector. You know that they were scum. I fast twice a week. Look at me, God. I give my tithes of all that I possess. And the tax collector, standing afar off, notice that, would not so much as raise his eyes to heaven, but he beat his chest, saying, my God, or God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I like it in Latin, mea culpa, mea maxia culpa. It just kind of rings for me in my old life. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. You notice that the tax collector stands far off. He had to. Wasn't permitted to be any closer because of what he was, because of his lifestyle. The Jewish Talmud taught that the righteous could lie and deceive a tax collector because they were so unjust people. So you could lie and cheat to them. Kind of crazy? We justify sin. And the Talmud was justifying it. Obviously, the tax collectors there was a certain amount of legitimacy to the business. There were 2 types of tax collectors. There was a tax collector who collected property tax, income tax, and poll tax, and that was legitimate taxes of Rome. And then you had the other tax collectors, and they had